any now points in between of people who supported us through this. And in this whole process, the one thing we've had to hang our hats on, to relax a little bit and go ahead and lead our lives, is the fact that all three of these people, and I won't use the word men, these people will be in prison for the rest of their natural life. 2 weeks ago Saturday, we received a notice in the mail, which we thought, okay, must be one of those late COVID petitions. No, Michael Hoover, who is the person who brought all of these people to Freeport to kill my dad, sent 72 pages of ramblings that have no basis and no validity in him ever possibly getting out. He's found Jesus. Well, and I truly hope for his sake he has. That's fine, counsel the people there. He's become a better person, he's become more educated. Well, then work with the people around you. There are too many people and too many lives that have been tied up in this and given everything they have, even after retirement, even beyond that, so that we can rest assured that these people are not getting out. And we need help. We're tired. We've done this for too long, and we've fought this too many times. And that's why I'm so extremely grateful for all of your help and all of your input with this, because we can't fight this alone. We can't. We've had to for too many years, but if he gets out, our lives as we know it change. And you know, he says he wants to come back specifically to Freeport, to Stevenson County. He says it more than once in this 72-page rambling, that he wants to come back here and be a productive citizen. If that happens, I'm out. I can't stay here living, you know, he's taking me out of my community, of our community. He wants to be a tax-paying citizen. We've been tax-paying citizens and given to this community for countless years, as our families did. I can't have it to have him get out and have me have to leave here. It's not right, it's not fair, and he needs to stay where he is. He's having buyer's remorse and he doesn't like his sentence. That's not my problem. That's not our problem, it's not our community's problem. He did what he did and he got a sentence and he needs to live with it. And that's really the best I've got to say to all of you, except thank you again for all of your support, especially you two for being with us for so long. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Becky. Bob, would you like to say something? And if you'd like to turn that microphone up a little bit more, I think it'll be better for sound.
I will. Thank you. Sorry about that. Good evening. For those of you, as my sister said, for those of you that I don't know, my name's Bob Peters, and I'm the son of Robert Peters. My sister covered a lot of the important things, and I don't want to be redundant in saying that, but a couple of the things that I'd like to say is that this decision on this particular sentence for Michael Hoover has been upheld 4 times by the higher courts. He's had his post-conviction hearings upheld. He's had his sentence upheld. He's had his appellate court hearings upheld. None of the higher courts have found any cause for there to be any other sentence than natural life without the possibility of parole. And keeping in mind, at the original court sentencing, there were 30 years added to this sentence for the armed robbery. So this isn't just a sentence of natural life, no parole. This is a sentence of natural life, no parole, plus 30 years. It's obvious that the courts had intended this to be the sentence handed down. Those are important facts, and those they can't be disputed, they can't be argued, they can't be twisted. These are the higher courts that we've all been taught to respect. My family's been in Freeport our entire lives. We were born here, raised here, small businesses, small business owners, worked here, and this is something that affects not just us, but the community has to recognize it as well. And that's where I want to thank each and every one of you for considering this and supporting us, because you not only support us, but you're supporting the community as well. You all have constituents that have concerns in this, and I don't think anybody wants to litter our city with the likes of Michael Hoover. I can't say a lot more than that. There's no sense in being redundant on any of this, but the 72 pages is just what my sister said. It's rambling, you know, and it's a very cookie cutter response that convicted people of his nature submit. And they submit it with hopes that it'll fall on some of those weaker ears and I don't think it will, but nonetheless, our fight will be just as diligent. So thanking all of you was very important for both my sister and I to be here, and to thank you, Mayor. You've been great. Representative Chesney, Sheriff Snyders, there are so many, all of our legislators. I had a great conversation with our former state rep, Jim Seisha, today. And he always makes me, regardless of the situation, he always makes me feel better about our fight. And our fight is important, and our fight is worth everything that we've put into it, and I want you to know it's worth all your efforts as well. So thank you again from the bottom of our hearts, and we greatly appreciate all your help. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And for those that don't know, we are sending letters as well to stand beside the Peters family in opposition, asking for a denial of the executive clemency that's been filed in this case. And so they will be receiving a letter from myself, from the city manager, from the city clerk, and then as well as a letter from the council members. So we want you to know we stand with you and we agree with you, and we would hope that this would be denied and they would hold to the original conviction of natural plus 30 without parole. So we stand with you, and thank you for coming tonight. Then we will move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature unless a member of the council has something they would like to pull for further discussion. Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of approving and placing on file the Liquor Commission report from April 8th and May 6th, the Zoning Board of Appeals from May 6th, and the Planning Commission from May 13th. Also approving and placing on file the audit from Whiffley, and approving and placing on file from Lauterbach and Amon reports for the police and firefighters pension fund actuarial valuation reports, as well as the GASB 6768 for both firefighters and the police pension fund, and the GASB 74 and 75 for post-retirement health plan. Also is approving and placing on file the Freeport Housing Authority monthly report, the finance report from May 21st, the cash and investment report from May 2021, the Juneteenth proclamation, the resolution R 2021-19, which requests temporary closure for the streets on cruise night, Saturday, August 14th, approving the finance bills payable in the total of $554,711.33, and for payroll from pay period ending June 5th, 2021, in the total of $546,977.61. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. Motion passes 5-0.
You can stand right here. Madam Mayor, I present to you this evening firefighter Emily Renee Gustin for swearing in. Actually, I'm going to have Mark read this.
Congratulations, Emily. On behalf of Commissioner Brown and myself and the City of Freeport Board of Fire and Police Commission, welcome to our community, welcome to this family. We have a very high standard for anybody that we welcome onto our team. And we ask ourselves, is this the kind of person that we would want to show up on our doorstep in our time of need? Whether it's to protect our property, whether it's to save a life, and more importantly, to take care and support your team. You're joining an elite group of individuals, and you should be very proud. So it's my honor to read to you Official Commission, City of Freeport Board of Fire and Police Commission. Emily Renee Gustin, having been duly appointed to the office of firefighter in and for the City of Freeport in the County of Stevenson and State of Illinois for the term from the 21st day of June 2021 until her successor shall have been duly appointed and qualified, is hereby fully authorized and empowered to assume and perform all the duties of her said office according to the law and the ordinance of said city, and all persons are requested to respect her in the discharge of her said duties by order of the Fire and Police Commission. Congratulations, Emily.
And I'm going to let you hold this because they want to hear your voice, not mine.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Emily Guston,
I, Emily Guston,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the
that I
Constitution of
will support the Constitution of
the United States
the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of firefighter
of the office of firefighter
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Emily. Thank you for being a part of the team.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you a lot for this opportunity. I'm really excited to see where the future takes me.
Thank you very much.
So Daniel, congratulations to you as well. It's a privilege to have you here and to welcome you to our community. And as I shared with Emily at the Board of Fire and Police Commission, I can speak for Commissioner Brown as well, is that we have a very high standard. And not many people are able to stand in front of this group, in front of their brothers and sisters and this community with the knowledge that we trust you with the responsibility to take care of our families, as well as taking care of your own. And I don't think there can be a higher honor that anybody could be bestowed. You're joining an elite group of individuals. Every person in uniform here is somebody that we know we can count on. And not just us, but anybody in this community, that they have our best interests in mind. So with that responsibility, it's my pleasure to be able to read your official commission. City of Freeport, Board of Fire and Police Commission. Daniel Ray Thompson, having been duly appointed to the office of patrolman in and for the city of Freeport in the county of Stevenson and state of Illinois, for the term from the 21st day of June 2021 until his successor shall have been duly appointed and qualified, is hereby fully authorized and empowered to assume and perform all duties of his said office, according to the law and the ordinance of said city. And all persons are required to respect him in the discharge of his said duties by order of the Fire and Police Commission. Congratulations, Daniel.
Thank you. And I'll let you have that. If you will raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Daniel Thompson,
I, Daniel Thompson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of parole officer.
the office
I'm sorry, patrol. I said that wrong. Patrol officer.
the office of patrol
Raising
officer
your rank quickly. According to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Before I give you your badge, I had some things that I was going to say tonight, but since the Peters family is here, it kind of threw everything out what I was going to say. I think you heard Mr. Gridley talk about the character that we want to go out. And I hope you heard tonight when officers like Sheriff Snyders, like Chief Parker, Greg Shadle, do their job the right way, you have a lasting impact on everyone and on the families. I hope you guys heard the impact that those officers had on their life. Because that's what we need to do every day for our community, is to go out and make that impact. And that's why we hired you, because we saw those qualities that we want. So congratulations. I present you your shield and your hat badge, 165.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item number 6 is reappointments. Could you please read this for the record?
We have 2 reappointments to the Zoning Board of Appeals, both effective through June 30th, 2026, of Andrew Reeder and Ron Kane.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Madam Clerk, could you please take the vote?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 7 is the second reading of ordinance 2021-20. Could you please read this?
An ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed 2.5 million general obligation bonds, Series 2021, of the City of Freeport for the purpose of financing various capital improvements, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. As previously discussed at a couple of committee whole meetings and at the last city council meeting, this bond is basically for $2 million, not to exceed $2.5 million. With this money, we're planning on purchasing a paver and a roller, with the remaining about $1.7 million to be used for street resurfacing projects throughout the city. This is a 10-year bond, and the yearly payments will not exceed $275,000 per year.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
motion to move it forward.
Actually, I don't need a motion. It's just discussion, and then we'll vote.
Second.
Alderman Berberay?
Thank you. Manager Bucas, it's a 10-year bond. Will the work be done over 10 years or a shorter time period?
No, we're looking at spending the money within 3.
Within 3 years, thank you.
Any other input, council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2021-20?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. The ordinance passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 8 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-18. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending sections 1044 and 1048 of the Code of Ordinances regarding water and sewer fees.
Thank you. Manager Bucas?
Thank you, Your Honor. As previously discussed, the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency are proposing some new rules and regulations regarding the testing and treatment of various chemicals in our drinking water. They are also changing what has to take place as far as pre-treatment process and lead and copper testing, nitrogen and phosphorus removal, among others. What we're looking at doing is funding 2 positions at the water and wastewater operations. And as previously discussed, in order to fund these 2 positions, we're proposing to raise the water base rate by 26 cents, and this would raise the base rate to $4.41 per month. And it would, we would also raise, to $4.56 per month. And the wastewater, we're looking at increasing it by $1.05, which would bring the base rate to $7.21. This is the base rate. It's not based on usage. This is a flat rate that you pay as part of your utility bill. I know that some council members have expressed their desire not to raise utility rates. As an alternative, and one in which I'm not recommending or advocating, would be to temporarily reduce the capital charge on utility bill by $1. This dollar would then be split between 25 cents going to the base rate for water and the 75 cents going to the sanitary sewer base rate. Again, this would be a temporary fix for not to exceed 2 years, and this would cost the city approximately $240,000 over that 2-year period. The water and sewer capital funds are generally used to pay for debt service on the EPA loans that we receive, and by not collecting these fees, it may impact what projects we may or may not be able to do in the future. On the plus side, we are receiving $2.8 million from American Rescue Plan funds for water and sewer projects that we are currently putting together our list, and this money could help reduce some future borrowing costs by the city. Staff's recommendation that the council adopt ordinance number 2021-18, adjusting the water base rate by 26 cents and the wastewater rate by $1.05.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yes. With having to raise the rates already over the past 5 years here, it just kind of eats at me to try to tell the people that we're raising them again. So, with receiving these grant funds and low interest loans that we were not foreseeing when we first put in those rate increases, I think the second option, in my opinion, would be a good way to show the citizens that we're looking out for their pocketbooks as well as trying to keep up with the EPA here. So I'd like to make the motion to go ahead with the latter option of taking that dollar off of the capital improvement for the next 2 years only until we can revisit this again, and pay for it that way instead of increasing rates again for our constituents.
Okay, so does everybody understand what he just put a motion on the floor for? Yes.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, so the motion made by Alderman Busker and seconded by Alderman Ross is to do the latter of what Manager Buckus had discussed, and that would be for a temporary fix, a 2-year, changing the dollar that's needed from capital instead of raising the water rate. And as what the original motion was for on first reading. So discussion on that motion.
Mayor, we had an ordinance up for consideration, though. Shouldn't that be voted on first?
It's amended.
The way that I understand the alderman's motion would be essentially to amend the ordinance, but I think that by the motion itself, if I'm reading the ordinance correctly, it would essentially negate the need for the ordinance completely. So what I would suggest is maybe taking a straw poll and see if that is the consensus of the group, in which case there could be a motion then, whoever made the original motion to approve the ordinance, that motion could be withdrawn and the second could be withdrawn, and then the ordinance would then die for a lack of a motion and a second, or alternatively, you could vote on the ordinance that is before you, and then it essentially would fail. The ordinance would not pass.
Alderman Shadle?
Could we have any discussion?
Yes.
Counter to this?
Yes.
Prior to a vote, please? Could I go ahead with that? I understand that raising the rates is something that's not very well taken. It's not very well taken by me. However, the essence of the need for this raise is a mandate by the state, IPA, or Environmental Protection, EPA, that we really have no control over, other than we have to, by mandate, we have to follow their recommendations or mandates. If we move money from this capital fund to the tune of $240,000 over a 2-year period, we're gonna get ourselves back into a situation that brought us to where we are today. That we're kicking this can down the road for $1.31 a month. A cup of coffee at McDonald's is $1.31. I feel that we really need to deal with this situation and leave the capital fund for what it's supposed to be for.
Alderman Burway?
Manager Buckus, if we were to take the money, $240,000 from the capital fund, will we be able, under the auspices of no home rule, put that back on after the 2 years is up? Reinstate it in effect?
It's a fee, so I would,
So we have
so I think we would have that.
capability of doing that even
yes.
if we lose home rule.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And just Alderman Shadle, just so you remember that we also were granted 2.8 million that goes into the water and sewer fund from the American Rescue Plan, so that's a positive.
Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Okay, with all this being said, I just can't see, I know it's only $1.31, but I just can't see raising the water rate again. I would rather see it go to the capital fund. I know it's going to be used for 2 years, but I think we'll be better off by going to the capital fund than going to the water rate, because in the long run, it may make, it's going to make a lot more sense. That's basically what it is.
Well, my suggestion would be to have the motion and the second for the amendment withdrawn, and then have a vote on the original ordinance.
I withdraw my motion if he wants to withdraw his second.
Second, yes.
So now on the floor is
The original
the
motion.
original first reading.
Correct, yes.
And so normally, it would be asked to move it forward, but we're going to see what the census is as far as like, are we moving it forward or not?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
seeing as there is some concern, and we've got 3 portions of the city that are unrepresented right now with, I just like, I put it to make a motion to move it forward to the next meeting, just so we do have better representation of the city.
Okay, if you do that, then it moves on to second reading. Is that what you're asking? You want the
Yes.
same exact thing?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'd like to move forward because Alderman Shadle brought up some good points, and I want to make sure that everyone at the council has their input in on it as well.
That will then also give staff time to have additional discussions, if need be, between now and the meeting on the 7th, or 6th, the 6th, the meeting on the 6th.
Okay, so would it be advised that maybe there were 2 options, an A and a B, to move forward? Or what do you normally do with that then?
Well, you could just move forward the ordinance as drafted, and then as with the ordinance that was drafted as it currently stands, if there isn't at the next meeting a consensus of the council to approve it, then I'm not sure without looking at it, but it might be necessary to draft some sort of resolution or other document to use the second option that Manager Bucas has recommended. So if it looks like that's going to be the consensus, then that's another document that can be prepared. But the ordinance that you have before you right now, the one that is on the agenda, would be to raise the rates. That can then move forward to second reading at your next meeting, and there can be additional discussion with the other members of the council present. Perhaps at that point, then that ordinance, the original ordinance, the one that's on your agenda this evening, it might have enough support.
And so then, just to be clear, would you then also say that the next meeting, there would be option number 2 prepared and ready to go? Or is that just going to push it out further?
You could do that. I mean, certainly then you would have the opportunity to act on option number 2 at the next meeting, and you do not have to put that on a first reading. It could go to second. But the alternative then would be if the original ordinance raising the rates does not pass, then you will have to wait for the second meeting in July to take action on option 2.
Discussion. Alderman Burberry.
Why don't we just wait until the next meeting? Why even vote on it at all?
We have to decide whether we're moving something forward.
Well, I know that, but we can vote not to move it forward.
Well, we don't vote on a first reading, so it's either we move it forward, or you can say, you want to put it to the cow, or you.
Could we postpone?
Well, that's in effect what I'm saying, it's postponed, just postpone.
You know, again, if you want additional discussion on this matter, then I would suggest either moving it forward to your next city council meeting or alternatively moving it to the cow. So
Moving
that
it.
you have a specific place where it's going.
Madam Mayor.
I think I understand the consensus, I'm not positive, but moving it forward gives the public the impression that that's what we're gonna vote on next time,
Madam Mayor.
okay? So,
Alderman Busker?
Well, I guess there wasn't a second to my motion, so I guess I'd like to correct it to, I want to move this to the next cow for discussion.
Second it.
Okay, so now there's a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross, to move this discussion to the committee of the whole for July. Is there any other discussion, council? Then we will move on to item number 9, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-21. Could you please read this?
Ordinance amending the boundaries of the joint Northwest Illinois Certified Enterprise Zone.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. As part of our joint Northwest Illinois enterprise zone that we have, we're looking at expanding it by about 585.5 acres. Currently, the zone is about 12.59 square miles, and we're going to expand it to about 13.5 miles. High Point Solar LLC is currently in the development phase of a 100 megawatt solar power generating plant in Stevenson County, and they're asking for inclusion in our enterprise zone. It's estimated to cost about $109 million. There's a result of about $13 million in property taxes that we generate over a 35-year life of the project. They're planning on creating at least about 150 construction jobs that'll last at least a year, with a $3.4 million payroll. And once it's in operation, they'll have 5 full-time employees working at the solar farm. Basically, we're looking at expansion, and the proposed expansion is contiguous to the current enterprise zone as defined by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. The enterprise zone committee met and is recommending that all the all the governing bodies that participate in this enterprise zone approve the resolution that's presented for you tonight.
Questions?
Motion to move forward.
second?
A motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Berberet to move ordinance 2021-21 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
If I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
Time is kind of a essence in this situation. We're looking to have everybody approve them. The resolution is by the end of the month, so if we could have second reading, we would appreciate it.
So in other words, you're asking for a suspension of the rules?
That is correct.
Motion to suspend.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross for the suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the suspension?
Berberet.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
The suspension
Yeah, I'm sorry. Passes.
passes 5-0.
So now council before you for final passages for 2021-21. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Berberet.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
And the ordinance passes 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-22. Madam Clerk, would you please read this?
Ordinance accepting properties from tax trustee sales.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So we identified 19 properties to purchase through the county tax trustee program that were going to become available for sale through the tax trustees auction. Each property is $815 total, making the purchase price $15,485 to be paid from the Neighborhood Housing Fund. So 14 of the properties are located within city limits, and they are condemned structures. And most of them are at this point ready to be demolished, but there are a few that that we're going to try and bring through the land bank for rehabilitation, so they would be sold and then rehabbed. And then the remaining properties are just outside of city limits, but they're located in the floodway. So they're properties that are just contiguous to properties that we either currently own or that we were planning to purchase. And then we can annex these properties into city limits and include them with our overall floodway and open green space plan. So staff would recommend approval of the purchase of the 19 properties from the tax trustee sale or to move it forward for the next meeting. For the strategic plan alignment, this meets connected, accessible, and safe communities, responsive, efficient government, and vibrant communities. And then it meets one of our goals in the comprehensive plan, which is to increase safe and affordable, sustainable home ownership and the quality of both owner and tenant occupied homes. And that includes restoring, creating, and preserving healthy and vibrant neighborhoods that serve all populations of Freeport, and identifying and planning for removal of properties in the floodway and throughout the city that are unsafe and continue to use the Northern Illinois Land Bank. I can take any questions.
Alderman Burberry.
Can you give a brief description, chronology of what it takes for a property to get where it was to here? I know they're all different, but is there a similar path for every piece of property?
So to get on the county tax trustee sale, they had to have missed their tax payments for the past 3 years. They have chances to redeem these taxes every year, but if they don't redeem their taxes within that 3-year period, then the county puts it out for auction, essentially. And so anyone can buy these properties. We've tried to identify properties that are in the worst condition, essentially, and take those off of the tax sale so they're not purchased from someone who a lot of people try and buy these properties for a low amount of money, and then they don't want to put a whole lot of work into them because they need a lot of work. And so we're trying to take them out of that cycle and either demolish them if need be or put them through the land bank program, which we can identify specific purchasers through the land bank and set criteria through the sale, like the amount of time that the property has to be fixed up and requiring building permits for the whole process, inspections and everything. And so we have a little bit more say if we do it through the land bank versus people buying it off of the auction.
Thank you.
Director Hines, if, let's say of one of these properties, you have someone else that also wants to purchase it, do we have priority?
Yes, we've built a relationship with the tax trustee, and they've worked with us when we've identified properties like in the floodway or properties that are that we've deemed dangerous and unsafe. They've worked with us and put those properties on hold until we've either gotten grant funds or are able to purchase those, like with the neighborhood housing fund.
Mayor?
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Director. If we do get these properties, what are we going to do with them?
So most of the properties that are within the city limits they'll have to be demolished, and so we're getting $50,000 from the Illinois Housing Development Authority for through the Abandoned Properties Program, so that'll help with the demolition costs. And we do have money in the neighborhood housing fund still after this purchase to help with demo as well. There are some that we can put them through for sale through the Northern Illinois Land Bank, and so through that program we can set criteria as to how the people need to fix up the houses.
How many of the 19 do you think are demo?
Most of them. So there's 6 properties that are just the contiguous to city limits properties. Those are all vacant, actually, and so out of the 14, I would say most of those have to be demolished. There might be 4 that could go through the land bank.
So is it safe to say that those 10 could possibly be demolished yet this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the property will be, say it goes through, the properties get demolished, then that would leave the city being responsible for the upkeep on the land.
Yeah, so we've last fall we set the land reutilization policy where we will first identify if any of the property owners to the right or left of the vacant lot are interested in taking ownership of it, and then they can just expand their lot or whatever they want to do with it. And then if they're not interested, then we look behind to see if the property owners behind the lot are interested in expanding their lot backwards. And then from there, we have sort of a list that we go through and how, if it could be developed, or if there's multiple properties next to each other that could be given to the park district. Some of it all depends, but like there's one property on 15 West Dexter where we just demolished 9 West Dexter. There's another house that it's abandoned and it could come down. And it's 3 lots that are next to each other that could maybe eventually be park space or something, but.
And then the properties that are, should we say, that are still worth keeping without demolishing, we can turn those over to the land bank so someone can go back in, refurbish them, and put them back out there on the market, shall we say?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Have we had much luck on taking some of these abandoned lots and selling them to the neighbors or giving them to the neighbors?
Yeah, we've had interest in it. We've been working to basically identify a way to reach out to everyone and getting a hold of all of the neighboring properties and everything, but we've definitely had interest in it.
So what's your pleasure, council?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
motion to move forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Shadle to move ordinance 2021-22 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-23. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving special use permit for cannabis craft growing facility at 103 to 111 South Liberty.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thank you. So we received a special use application on May 17th from Green Healthcare Solutions Illinois LLC. This is the company that we discussed at the past few weeks ago when we were talking about the Riverfront redevelopment text amendment. And so they're asking for the special use for an adult use cannabis craft growing facility at 103 to 111 South Liberty Avenue. So our original staff report sent to the zoning board and the planning commission is included with this memo in my packet of information. The zoning board held their public hearing on June 3rd and there were no objectors. The planning commission reviewed the application the following week on June 10th. And our recommendation originally was and still stands to recommend approval of the special use application, and this would be contingent on the approval of a purchase contract with the business, and obviously on them getting the state of Illinois license to operate as a cannabis craft growing facility. And then in addition, we would like to add to that the special use application, we would recommend it to be specific to the business, GHSI. And so at the Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing, they voted 5-0 to recommend approval with those same contingencies. Like I said, there were no objectors present at the hearing, but we did get one letter in support of the application by Pete Albert, who owns the building just to the south of this property. And then the Planning Commission's recommendation was to approve it based on the same contingencies, 4-1. Then I can take any questions.
Was there any reason why there wasn't a unanimous with the planning?
So the thought behind the one person who did not vote to recommend approval was that we've been discussing with a group that's been doing a study about a railway possibly going into Freeport, and they're looking at potentially putting something in this area where the original railway, or I can't think of what it's called, train station sat, and so they're looking at putting something there again, but we don't know what the timeline for that would be, and we really don't have any idea if that's going to get approved ever or not.
Even if there was that train station, it wouldn't be with that building. They build their own.
Yes, yeah.
Alderman Parker?
Make a motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Busker to move ordinance, said the wrong, 2021-23 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Was there any other discussion, council, before we move on? Then we will move on to item number 12, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-24.
Ordinance revising Chapter 857 meeting halls.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. On November 2nd, 2020, the City Council adopted ordinance number 2020-55, which regulated meeting halls. And in order to get a better handle on how many businesses may be affected by this new regulations, staff scanned various websites and Yellow Pages to see who may be affected by the meeting hall ordinance. And there were approximately 26 establishments that advertise rooms and/or buildings for rent. One thing we have to remember is by definition, the definition of a meeting hall is space regularly made available for non-residential use by persons who are not the owner or leasee of the subject premises. Staff's concerns with the meeting halls is parking oversight, crowd management, and fire occupancy. And the meeting hall ordinance that was adopted last November, we feel met this criteria. The City Council discussed this issue at their last three meetings. And at the last committee of the whole meeting, the council asked that the Tier 1, which are taverns, restaurants, package sales, and brew pubs, and Tier 2, which are wine and beer sales on premises and packaged goods, be exempt from the meeting hall licensing requirements. The attached ordinance that is before you, I believe, meets that request. Staff also requested that the fee for the meeting halls be reduced, that the fee for meeting halls remained for the first initial contact at $100 per year, and then any renewals at $25 per year. And the amended ordinance that we have before you includes that as well. And it's staff's recommendation that we proceed with this revised ordinance.
Alderman Ross.
Getting back to this, we did have some discussion about this, but still there's a couple of things that's not clear. I'm going to ask the chief of police, is there anything that you would like to see in here that's missing?
You know, I've talked a couple times to a couple different people about this. There's no magic tool that if there's an establishment where something gets out of hand, that is going to solve that problem that night. It's going to be more of a manage the situation, and after that, prepare reports and move those to the proper property governing bodies for that, say the Liquor Commission, to deal with that at that level. That being said, that there needs to be something, in my opinion, that lets people know that there has to be some sort of regulation, some sort of control over people who may rent out parties that are attached to rooms or things like that, that when these get out of control, there's going to be some accountability for allowing these things to happen.
Which some of those that you're talking about happen to fall under the Tier 1 and Tier 2.
Correct. There's some establishments that in the past have continued to push the limits of on what things are. There's one incident that comes to mind, I think I talked about it before, is establishment downtown had a party, our party got out of hand. They didn't close in the proper time. It was a situation where we managed the situation and allowed the Liquor Commission to take control of the license and do those things. However, that's on the outside. There's other establishments that sometimes push the limits of what the liquor license and those rooms have that cause problems also. So that it goes all the way down the tiers, that there's potential problems.
Mayor, so basically what I'm saying is, I would like to see where if there is a problem, when it's getting out of hand, the police department can gain entry into there to take care of the problem, shall we say. Because if somebody's calling for the police and they say, well, we're not going to let you in, then something, this is my own opinion, then something happens to that person, then they're going to say, well, you know, it's all going to fall back on the city one way or another, and the police department.
I should be clear that if there's a life safety issue there, the police department are going to go in and take care of things. If if somebody's just having a loud party, there's continued loud noise and things like that, that is gonna raise a risk level for the officers to go into a large room that's full of intoxicated people that are just being loud and that things, and the officers there just raise the escalation and the tension level in there. It may not be the best situation to go in there and shut that down, other than manage it from the outside, and let other governing bodies take care of that problem in a different way when it's safer to do that for the officers that are there.
So in other words, holding the person who owns a building and the person who's having a party accountable for their actions.
Correct.
Thank you.
So the purpose of leaving the tier 1 and tier 2 would be so that way the police department maybe a better information as far as which establishments could possibly have that meeting space that is apart from their normal business.
Correct.
So what's your pleasure, council? Leaving that amendment in, like it was voted on last week, or not?
Make a motion to move it forward.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Shadle to move ordinance 2021-24 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. And I guess for those of you that maybe have concerns, if you want to discuss further, I mean, there's still a few more weeks in there if you want to, you know, have some discussions on that with maybe the chief on the side, or however you want to do that. But we'll move the ordinance forward the way it's written. Anything further on that, council? We will move on to item number 13, which is the first reading of ordinance 2021-25. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Ordinance of the City of Freeport to provide public transportation.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Hi, thank you. So this is just something that we have to regularly look at and approve as part of the 5311 grant program for Pretzel City Transit. And so this is basically just saying that that council is approving that we're running the program, operating the program, and have the PCOM, Amy Jo, here in the city.
So this is normal housekeeping kind of stuff?
Yes, yeah. And we would request that the rules are suspended so we can get it approved and then into our grant application.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to move ordinance 2021-25 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Motion
Alderman
to
Busker?
suspend.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to suspend the rules as was asked. Suspension of the rules is not debatable and was passed by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the suspension only?
Barbaray.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. The suspension passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. So ordinance 2021-25, as was stated, is a normal housekeeping kind of an ordinance. If there's no further questions, comments, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage?
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
Shadle. And Barbaray.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 5-0.
And item number 14 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-26. Could you please read this?
Ordinance approving special use permit for a vacation rental at 1650 West Apache Trail.
Thank you. Director Hines.
So we received a special use application for a vacation rental at 1650 West Apache Trail. The owners, Frank and Munyin Lefevre, rent their apartment-style walkout basement through the Airbnb application while living in the home on the main floor. We held a public hearing at the Zoning Board of Appeals on June 3rd, 2021. There were 2 objectors present and 1 person there to speak in favor of the application. One objector presented testimony that the subdivision covenants for the neighborhood do not allow businesses to operate within the neighborhood. The petitioner did provide us with a copy during the hearing of the covenants, and And we located, or we did see that the language within the covenants do not allow businesses. This is something that the city does not enforce subdivision covenants, and we wouldn't typically look them up either because the city does not, we can't enforce them. It's not part of our ordinances. It's usually up to the homeowners association or just the neighborhood in general to manage those and to enforce them on their own. We did include the subdivision covenants that were given to us, and the original ones that were given to us were for a separate plat. We looked up the plat that this property is in, and it was the same exact language in there. So originally we did recommend approval of this with some conditions. So we thought that after consideration of the special use standards and the LaSalle Sinclair factors that the special use could be granted, but contingent on getting the bed and breakfast license. And then we thought that it would be good to limit the number of cars that are on the property to 2 per guest stay, so there's not an influx of additional vehicles or people aren't having parties, basically. And the Zoning Board of Appeals, at their public hearing on June 3rd, they voted 5-0 to recommend approval, also contingent on the license and this limit for 2 cars per stay, and then the confirmation that the subdivision covenants allow the proposed use. The Planning Commission reviewed the application on June 10th, and after consideration of the application and looking at the covenants, they voted 5-0 to not recommend approval of the special use permit. From my standpoint, since we originally were going to recommend approval of it, I would honestly leave it up to the council to make the decision on whether you would like to enforce the subdivision covenants.
And that's why the Planning Commission voted no, because of those covenants?
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
I guess this question would be for legal counsel. Have you seen this in any other communities? Where would the city fall as on liability for anything with subdivision covenants there?
We don't have the authority to enforce those, so as Director Hines indicated, I mean, we possibly do would be to incorporate those as conditions in the special use, and then you would enforce them pursuant to your enforcement mechanisms for violating the special use conditions. So you could do it that way. I don't typically see it done that way, but that is an option for you.
I guess my question would be if we were to authorize this and allow someone to do this, that the homeowners association or the neighborhood or whoever, they wouldn't be able to come back and sue the city for it. We wouldn't be held liable for any of that.
No, because the subdivision covenants, again, are a private cause of action, civil cause of action between property owners. So that isn't something that we would be responsible for or even be able to be held liable for. You don't approve them. Covenants and restrictions are not typically brought before municipal governing bodies for approval. They're just something that are recorded against the property when agreed upon by lot owners.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Ross?
would they be held up, would they be responsible for any codes, like fire code or anything like that?
Yes, yeah, as part of the license, they do have to get an inspection. The inspectors would determine occupancy limit, and they would have to be up to current code, building and fire, and yeah.
And as you mentioned before, would it be a limit to how many vehicles could be there or anything like that on the street, roadway, or whatever?
So our recommendation would be to limit it to 2 cars per stay. I feel like that's reasonable. They have a spot in their driveway designated for the Airbnb guests to park in. But if they had someone who had 2 cars with them, then someone would have to park on the street too. So the neighborhood itself, I don't believe, has parking limitations. So if someone were just to have family or friends over and staying the night, and then there wouldn't be a limitation on cars that they have. But for someone who's using their property as a business more so, than having this limit of 2 cars, I think is reasonable.
Would it be safe to say they are using it as a business, or it says vacation rental?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, okay, okay,
Yeah, yes.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Have we been approached by the, do they have a, like, what a, residential, what do they call it?
The homeowners association?
Yeah, homeowners, yeah.
I don't believe that the neighborhood has a homeowners association. Someone from the neighborhood, they brought this to our attention, but I don't believe that they have a designated homeowners association. But I guess something that I would add to this, I can't remember exactly what date this covenant was created, but there are neighborhoods that the properties were built in the early 1900s, and I think it would be very unreasonable to support some of the covenants that were put into place when those properties were built, because there are discrimination covenants, or there's discrimination within some of the covenants that were created when some of these neighborhoods were put into place. And I think this one is relatively new, so it's not like that, but it's not the city's responsibility.
Thank you.
Alderman Burberry?
Director Hines, our city manager, Bucus, does the city formally enter into any relationship with homeowners groups or subdivisions when they're being created, so that we know what's they're allowing or what we don't want to allow? And which brings up the question of, as you referred to, review of some very old criteria for operation. Do we, as a matter of course, look at that?
I think as part of the whole plating process, we do look at it, but there again, as Director Hines pointed out, we have no enforcement. We could recommend changes as it's going through the process. Perfect example of this would be the Park Partners. You know, they wanted us to have a public road there, and they were going to have a restricted covenant there that you could not park on the street. Well, it's not a city ordinance that they can't park on the street, so if somebody's going to park on the street, it would be up to the homeowner association to enforce that. And I think that's what we're having here, is that there, and another example would be like a fence. Some homeowner associations do not allow fences. But if somebody came in and wanted to put a fence up and they met all our criteria, we would issue them a permit to install a fence. Then it'd be up to the homeowner association and that homeowner to work out the legal details. But we do not enforce homeowner association covenants.
Thank you.
Alderman Shadle?
Director Hines, would it be a safe assumption that the two dissenting parties at that meeting were neighbors and the one in favor was the owner?
No, the person in favor is also a neighbor. So the objectors are neighbors. The one who spoke in favor is a neighbor. Mm-hmm.
I'd make a motion to pass it on.
To move forward?
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Busker, to move ordinance 2021-26 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 15 is the first reading of ordinance 2021-27. Madam Clerk, would you please read this?
Ordinance approving special use permit for a vacation rental at 1851 Indian Springs.
Thank you. Director Hines.
Thanks. So we received another vacation rental special use application for 1851 Indian Springs Court. This is a similar situation. They rent out the basement. They live in the main floor. And because we received the covenants from the other property, we did look these up as well. And they had the same exact language in there that businesses are not permitted. But our original recommendation was the same as this previous recommendation to approve based on them getting the bed and breakfast license, limiting the number of vehicles to 2 cars per guest stay, and then the Zoning Board of Appeals on June 3rd, they, after consideration of the findings of facts and the South Sinclair factors, they voted 5-0, again contingent on these same items, and then they added in a contingent on the approval of the subdivision covenants. And then Planning Commission met on June 10th and discussed the application. They voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the special use on these same contingencies.
Not a lot of sense to go over it all again, so I make a motion to move forward.
Second.
We We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Is there any questions, council, concerning this particular property? Alderman Burberry.
Can I just ask clarification on the B&B at 1650 with Apache? The zoning board voted for it, and the planning commission voted against it. And on this most recent one, it's the other way around?
We, I should have added, we didn't get the subdivision covenants for the second property before the planning commission meeting. We got them afterwards, so we hadn't seen the covenants at that point. So in the planning commission's recommendation, it had the condition that they get the license, the 2-car limit, and then on the approval of the subdivision covenants.
But it's a reversal of roles in each situation, am I
Yes.
correct? Where do we stand? I guess we'll vote on the next meeting.
Attorney Sosnowski wants to add something.
I'm sorry, just one more point of clarification. For 1851 Indian Springs, I believe that it received a positive recommendation from both the ZBA and the Plan Commission. I think, was that your question, Alderman
Yes,
Burberry, as to whether or not it was a flop? It wasn't. It was a positive recommendation from both. For 1650 Apache Trail, it was a positive recommendation from ZBA, but a negative recommendation from the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
And that's because they understood the covenants prior to the vote versus
Yes.
after? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Okay. I was confused.
Any other discussion? Then we will move ordinance 2021-27 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 16 is the adoption of resolution 2021-22. Could you please read this?
Resolution to authorize an amendment to intergovernmental agreement for the operation of an enterprise zone.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. As mentioned previously when we were talking about the boundary agreement for this intergovernmental agreement with respect to the enterprise zone, we're talking about 585.5 acres, more or less, that would be included in the new enterprise zone boundaries so that High Point Solar LLC can construct their solar power generating plant in Stevenson County. This is just amending the agreement that all the parties have when it comes to the enterprise zone. So the Enterprise Zone Committee recommended approval of the resolution that's before you, and staff does as well.
Discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
motion to adopt resolution R 2021-22.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Parker. Is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of this resolution?
Burberry.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 5-0.
Item number 17 is the adoption of resolution 2021-23. Could you please read this?
Resolution to accept one-year renewal of contract with Honeywell for HVAC maintenance.
Thank you. Manager Bucus?
Thank you, Your Honor. For the past past 3 years, we've had a contract with Honeywell International to maintain our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems at not only City Hall here, but also at the 3 fire stations, the police station, our city garage, and the airport. Our current contract had a clause in it that would automatically renew for 1 year. We negotiated with Honeywell, and they agreed to extend our contract for 1 more year at our 3rd-year pricing, which is $54,468. So this would otherwise, if we did not negotiate this contract, they were looking at a 3.75% increase, and this contract does begin on May 1st of 2021, and it would expire on April 30th, 2022. And it's staff's recommendation that council approve the contract and resolution for 1 additional year.
Alderman Shadle?
Is this something that you would normally go out for a bid for, or is this opened up, or is this just
Yes.
the ease of
what we did is we went out for a bid 3 years ago, and Honeywell was the low bidder. And then when we were looking at the contracts for this year, they were willing to, after talking to them, they were willing to maintain the price for that, rather than increase it. And so that's why we're recommending that we maintain it. I believe 3 years ago, we only had Honeywell and one other company that bidded on the contract.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-23.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Berberay, seconded by Alderman Shadle. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the passage of ordinance 2021-23.
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
This is on the Honeywell contract.
Honeywell contract, sorry. And Shadle. And the resolution is adopted 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 18 is the adoption of resolution 2021-24. Could you please read this?
Resolution to approve contract with Fair Graham to provide engineering services for Oak Hill Sanitary Sewer Project.
Thank you. Director Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. As previously discussed at the COW, this resolution would approve an agreement with Fair Graham to begin moving forward with the Oak Hill, Hillcrest, Sylvan Court, Lawn Place collection system construction project that would include 6,200 linear feet of collection sewer main and 54. It would give 54 existing residents access to collection system. So staff's recommendation is to approve the resolution and allow us to enter this agreement and move forward with that project.
Alderman Shadle.
This is same engineering firm that did the preliminary
Yes, sir.
also. So they've already got a lot of the work done.
That's correct, sir, and they're also responsible for securing the $2.3 million in IEPA grant funding for the Unsewered Communities Grant that will allow us to move forward with it.
Sure. I'd make a motion to adopt.
All right, we have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Parker for the adoption of resolution 2021-24. Any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle.
Aye.
That resolution is adopted 5-0.
And item number 19 is the adoption of resolution 2021-25. Could you please read this?
Resolution accepting state fire marshal's grant.
Thank you. Chief Liggett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Freeport Fire Department is in the process of replacing our turnout gear. The Office of the State Fire Marshal provides small equipment grant for fire departments with funding priority of basic firefighting operations and safety equipment. The Freeport Fire Department wrote this grant for 41 sets of firefighting turnout boots. The department must purchase the equipment and be reimbursed. There is no required match, and no department can receive another award for up to 3 calendar years following this award. The value of the award is $12,950. If we do not accept this grant, the citizens will be responsible for the purchase of that turnout safety equipment. This is in conjunction with our strategic plan, Connected and Safe Community. The grant helps us provide a service with top-of-the-notch personal protective equipment and responsive and efficient government, in that we're using grant funds to purchase this equipment versus tax money. There's no funding match required, and the department must make the purchase and get reimbursed. Staff requests approval of the resolution to accept the grant and enter to the grant agreement, which is attached to the memorandum.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
motion to adopt R 21-25.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Parker. Any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of resolution 2021-25?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. Resolution is adopted 5-0.
And item number 20 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-26. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing execution and amendment of Federal 5311 grant agreement.
Thank you. Director Hines?
So this is just another housekeeping item related to the 5311 transportation grant. It's just the resolution authorizes the city to submit the application to the state to receive the funding.
Alderman Parker?
Motion to move that forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Busker. Any discussion, council? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. Resolution 2021-26 is adopted 5-0.
Item number 21 is the adoption of Resolution 2021-27. Could you please read this?
Resolution of support of the State of Illinois Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, program for Adams Avenue Corridor Housing Rehabilitation.
Thank you. Director Hines?
So the city is applying for to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for a housing rehabilitation community development block grant, or CDBG. And it's funded by Title I of the Federal Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. The resolution to approve the support of the CDBG grant is required as part of the application to solidify support from council. And then right after this, there's a resolution committing local funds that's required as well to ensure that council approves the local match. So we intend to apply for the maximum of $550,000 and propose to match $25,000 of local funds from the Neighborhood Housing Development Fund. And these are to be used for community development project that will include, but will not be limited to, rehabilitation of privately owned, single-unit, owner-occupied homes, including, but not limited to, roof repair, replacement, window replacement, accessibility modifications, interior wiring, furnace, central air conditioning, water heater, plumbing repair, and the list goes on with that. The amount of CDBG funds proposed to be used for activities that will benefit low to moderate income persons is $550,000, or 100% of the amount that we're requesting. The project area for the CDBG housing rehab program is along Adams Avenue corridor from Float Avenue to Armstrong. And we did include a map for reference. And so that we discussed this at our public hearing on June 7th, and we also held one on June 14th too. There were no objectors present at either of these hearings. There were about 5 or 6 people who came just interested in hearing about it, people who live in the area and who wanted to participate. So far, we've received over 40 surveys from people in the neighborhood, and I think we received 46, and I think about 40 of them are eligible to participate in the program. And so it's really good for our grant program, and it's really good. It's going to be really good for the neighborhood too. We can help probably about 8 to 10 people in total, and we're letting people know that as they're filling out the survey, they may or may not get assistance, and it's all going to be dependent on prioritizing based on need and all that. So that we would recommend approval of both the resolution approving support for the CDBG program and then committing the local funds for the CDBG grant.
Couple of questions, Director Hines. The math on that is a little confusing to me, 8 to 10 homes, but if there's potential of $550,000 worth of grants, that's a lot of money per household.
Yeah. So the money can go towards like roof repair and replacement, foundation repair replacement. There's going to be some probably big ticket items that some of these households will need repair on. So we may be able to do more than that if some houses only need small things repaired. But if we're going in and fixing up electrical, then we'll have to go in and fix all of the electrical because it'll have to come up to current code then. So some of those things the price is going to go up a little bit with that.
And is there a cap on what one particular resident can be eligible for?
No, there's no cap per se in that sense, but we do have to help at least 8 houses.
So you could potentially put $100,000 into a home?
Madam
Yes.
Mayor, if I may, I believe there is a $50,000 maximum on this grant per household, and that's why we're looking at 8 to 10 houses to do. And if they maxed out, but if they don't need as much work, then of course we do less, and we could do more housing.
So then who determines that?
Which houses?
Well, which
Or-
houses and how much money? I mean, like, you know, if you have 40 people that actually qualify,
Yeah, it'll all be based on need. So we look at what needs to be done in their house. We look at the number of people in the household, what their age is, whether anyone has disabilities, their race, and their income level. So we use all of those things and sort of create a priority list just based on that.
so there's a scoring method.
Yeah.
And so then the city then actually determines who and how much.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mayor,
Alderman Ross?
Director Hines, where would the person get the application for this?
Yeah, so they can get it from our office. We mailed out, we did 2 mailings already to every household. And then last week, we did some door-to-door surveying. So everyone should have received something at this point. We did get some mail back, but if they didn't receive it in the mail, then we went to their house and just taped it to the door or spoke with them last week. But we have them in our office too, and so they can call just our front desk and get a copy of it. We can come drop it off too.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker?
Yeah, with this, how would the grant work? Do you have a list of contractors that you guys are sending in, or does the person have to have the repairs done and then ask for reimbursement, or how's that program work?
So any of the contractors that are involved, they'll have to meet the CDBG criteria. So we'll have to have someone who's lead certified. They have to be obviously registered with the city, which is in any case they would be, but they would have to meet the CDBG requirements. So we've gotten some contractors basically support so far. And helping us with this, and one is helping us with identifying some of the estimated costs for some of the just fixing up some of the houses to help with our grant application.
Follow up. So you guys would be picking the contractors and sending them in, or the homeowner gets to pick who the contractor is? I guess is my question.
I think the homeowner can definitely have a say. We have our list of registered contractors that they just have to meet the criteria, and then yeah, we can work together on it.
Thank you.
If the council decides they want to move forward and apply for this grant, when does it have to be submitted, and how soon before you believe it might be awarded?
It's due at the end of August, and we're expecting to hear back in about February or March of next year. So we would plan on starting the work then in around the summertime of next year if we were to get the grant.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
motion to adopt 2021-27.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Is there any further discussion, council? Then, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the adoption of this resolution?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. And that resolution is adopted 5-0.
And item 22, the adoption of resolution 2021-28. Could you please read this?
Resolution committing local funds as part of State of Illinois Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, for Adams Avenue Corridor housing rehabilitation.
Director Hines, did you want to add to this?
I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
So this is just saying that if we get the 550,000, we will commit 25,000 as that portion of a match, which comes out of neighborhood housing.
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Any further discussion, council? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. The resolution is adopted 5-0.
And item number 23 is the adoption of resolution 2021-29.
Resolution accepting award of Illinois Housing Development Authority, IHDA, Abandoned Properties Program, or the APP Grant, Round 5.
And Director Hines.
So earlier this year, we applied for the Illinois Housing Development Authority Round 5 Abandoned Properties Program for demolition and property maintenance of eligible properties. And we received notice recently that we were awarded $50,000 through this program to acquire and demolish properties. There's no match required for the APP grant program, and the costs related to this grant will be 100% refunded. So we would recommend approval or acceptance of the $50,000 through the APP program so we can move forward with the demolition of some of these properties.
Do you expect that money to come through quickly then? I mean, like, can we get however many houses down yet this year?
So I think we will get it in about August is when they're expecting the final agreement to be signed by them and given back to us. But I think we could get a good number of them down this year still.
Discussion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Berberay for the adoption of Resolution 2021-29. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Berberay.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Busker.
Aye.
And Shadle. The resolution is adopted, 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 24 is reports from department heads. Finance?
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. And community development?
So on June 30th, it's a Wednesday at 7:30 a.m. We're going to hold a meeting with Chicago Avenue businesses to talk more about the Chicago Avenue Streetscape program. So based on the conversations that we had with them and then the discussion at the committee at the whole the other week, we're bringing a few alternatives to them, and then we'll bring, if we can get a consensus there, then we'll bring that back to council afterwards. And then
What time again was that, please?
It's
Time?
7:30 a.m.
7:30,
At the library. We're meeting in the larger meeting room on the main floor. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then we have a nuisance inspector starting tomorrow, so we're really excited to have someone come in and fill that position again. That's it.
Thank you. Public Works?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to just highlight the work our staff is doing, working with Fishers, fixing the wastewater collection system infrastructure in the river, taking the opportunity while it's low to make improvements that will lower our inflow and infiltration, and it should result into long-term operational savings. So that's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Fire Department?
Nothing to report tonight, ma'am.
And Police?
No report tonight, ma'am.
Thank you. And Library?
Thank you, Mayor Miller. I just wanted to say that on Monday, June 28th at 6 p.m., we have a murder mystery event that's happening at the library. It's actors that come in, and it's actually just people from the community that are going to perform a murder mystery. It's like a whodunit. You have to guess who it is. And there are still 17 seats available, so if any of you are interested, anyone that's listening or sitting here with us. And then also, one of the creative things that our youth services librarian did this summer was create interactive movie kits that families could register for and pick up. It was very, very popular. She did 65 kits for June, and those are already gone. So if you are interested in that, head on over to our event calendar for July. Go ahead and start getting registered to get your July kit, which is Rio. That's the movie. It's Rio. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And IT? Thank you. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're still in the process of looking for a communications director. That position is still open. And just as a follow-up to what Director Boyer mentioned, the Pecatonica River right now, the rain we had is at 4.83 feet. It's been pretty low, and we've been able to do a lot of work in the river there. And so we've got some capacity there, so we could get a little bit more rain and not have to worry about flooding. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. I just wanted to draw attention to a couple of things. Reminder that on Tuesday, tomorrow, is our Staff on the Street, the first event for Staff on the Street for 2021. So if each of you are available, it is at the Madonna Renewal Center, which is on Walnut. They have a really great space in their backyard. It's kind of a park-like atmosphere. So that is from 5 until 6:30. So if you can avail yourself, and to the constituents that are listening, it's just a way that we're trying to build trust within the community and get to know the city staff and hear any concerns that you might have. Hard to believe that this month is almost ended. July is next week, and so next Friday is the second Music on Chicago in the Art Plaza, which was the first one was very successful, and then also across the street in the Debate Square will be a free movie that night, which is next Friday night. And so with that, like to wish everyone happy 4th of July, to be safe. Please, no fireworks. In yards, we have enough of that cracking going on, so we don't need to add to that with barking dogs and carrying on and making everyone nervous. So remember that the following Monday, which is July 5th, there's no council meeting. The city hall is closed that day in observance of July 4th. So our next meeting will be on Tuesday, July 6th. So we will see you for that next meeting. So that moves on to new business. Alderman Berberay.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Ross.
Nothing, ma'am.
Alderman Parker.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman Busker.
Nothing this evening.
And Alderman Shadle.
Just like to reiterate to Becky Peters that we are very much with you.
Thank you. That leaves us with public comments. Are there any public comments? Tommy?
Wanted to tell you, Jody, are they going to have cruise night in August,
Yes, in August 14th, second Saturday.
second Saturday? And I want to tell Matt Summers, he does a good job doing the police chief at the police station. We want to keep you there.
Me too.
And want to tell Bound Parker, he does a good job at Alderman, too.
Thank you, Tommy.
And Kristen, what about that N-track? Do you any update about that?
I'll let you know when we get an update.
And we want to fix the pothole in Jefferson Street.
Yes, sir, we're working on the potholes.
Are there any other public comments this evening? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have a